Hello, sir. Good evening.
Ben, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
No problem. Thank you. We'll just give the others some time to
Mm-hmm.
join, yeah? Mm.
Sure. That's okay. Alan wouldn't be joining this evening.
Okay, he's not going to be able to join.
No, he's not, but he'll join tomorrow.
Okay, then that's fine.
Yeah.
Cheers. Good evening, madam.
Oh, good evening. I win the prize today. Yeah. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good. Thank you. Okay.
We're just waiting for a couple of more people and then we'll start. Yeah.
Thank you.
There was Rennie was here. I guess she dropped off. She was in the class. Maybe she's struggling with network. Madam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I was saying Rennie was in. So I've
Oh,
just
okay.
looked now, she has dropped here.
No, she's not there anymore. Yeah.
Mhm.
My Oga, these are your most serious students. We are here.
I guess so. Oh, cool. Let me try and get in touch with her and see what the matter is with her. Okay, since it's being recorded, we're going to start now. So, this was the homework I gave, right? Adam, I received your responses and we'll treat it now.
Okay.
Mm. Okay, Rennie is back. Oh, what's going on? Okay. Okay, let's go. So the homework, we were asking about who is responsible for documentation, for reporting, for follow-up and then professional development. Madam, you had a very good approach. Let me find your answer. Yeah. So, Madam, do you want to talk us through your response? And then I'll.
Okay. I mean, I didn't really say as much as I should have, but I just said that obviously in the context of the audits as in terms of the field work, which is looking at the audit activities rather than the audit program. The person that has responsibility for documentation most times is the audit team leader.
Okay.
However, in some smaller organizations where you have a small internal audit team, it could be the audit manager doubling up on that if there isn't a lot of area to cover, not a lot of people to assign. It all depends on the letter of assignment.
Yep.
So I think generally in the context of this course and what we're doing is the audit team leader. But depending on the organization and the task, it could be the audit manager doubling up. That's my response.
Very good. Very good. Anybody else wants to give us their answer? Hopefully we all made an attempt. Mr. Steven is not here. I know he sent me his as well. And it was also a good approach because what he did was to distribute the responsibility for documentation. Let me find his response as well. Give me 1 second. I just want to read what he sent through. Yes, so Mr. Steven said the lead auditor develops and oversees the audit process, so documentation about the audit process is with the lead auditor. If there is a separate internal audit, they would document the gap analysis, so keep the documentation about gap analysis. The ISMS team will maintain the, okay, I wanted more than a team, I wanted someone. So that's the feedback for that. Department heads will approve, will implement, and update. That's for documentation. For reporting, the lead auditor. Okay, so that's fine. Is there anybody else who wants to tell us before I show you how we?
Sir, I have a comment to make. I mean, I thought through this myself as well, and I think from what Madam Chinyere said, I think depending on the size of the team, depending on the size of the organization as well, things may be different. Also, for example, when you said reporting, I wasn't quite sure who they were reporting to or what is being reported, depending again on the context. The team members might be reporting to the lead auditor. The lead auditor might be reporting to both the audit manager or sometimes to the senior management if they are now actually carrying out the audit. So it depends on who reporting is heading up to the direction of travel for the reporting as well.
That's exactly what we want to see, because you are doing it based on requirement in the documentation. When an audit team is sent out to audit, there are so many things they can report on. So what are all those requirements of reporting and lines of reporting, the team to the lead auditor to management, and even communicating to the auditee and audit client. So that's what we want to see. Yeah. Yeah. And
now,
that's exactly how we've broken it down. We've done a RACI, all documentation responsibilities. Who is responsible for what documentation? You can have a document controller, you can have a records manager or records officer for documentation. And then you can also have different people drafting, approving or reviewing, approving the life cycle of documentation. There are different people doing that, doing so. Besides, different business units or departments might own different documents. So as you have risks and you create policies against risks, when you look at your controls, the annex, and you create policies, procedures, different people will own them. Someone in IT will not own HR policy. So documentation, you would say who owns documentation. So what we've done is we've created a RACI chart to just do this. And you can even explain the way you've done. It's still fine. I hope that makes sense.
It does, sir. So just to get the approach right, does it mean when these sort of questions are asked, we should define them in the broadest terms possible?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because like you said, so this is one of those kind of questions that requires you to critically think. This is lead auditor, lead implementer courses. The question expects you to show the experience that you have to get the certification. Okay? So documentation, as you can see, the scope is a separate document. Who owns it? Who is responsible for it? Because the question is, who is responsible for documentation? And then the documentation, which document are you talking about? Who is developing the SOA? Who owns the SOA? All our policies, as you can see, and like you said, like Madam said, it depends on the size of the organization. So in one place, they might not have a policy writer, but that responsibility falls on someone. So even if you put policy writer, it might be the risk manager doing that because they're small and he has more than one responsibility. So if you explain it, then that's fine. But if you do it like this, especially for interview, when you're going for an interview, you talk about it like this to say a RACI. For every question, there's a RACI. There's someone responsible. There's someone they're reporting to accountable. They consult for certain documents. If you want to conduct internal audits, they document the internal audit process. Who creates it? The internal audit team, and they own it. Who is accountable? They're reporting to the internal audit lead. But of course, they'll consult the IS manager and the department heads because they will schedule the audits. Okay? And then, of course, they inform relevant stakeholders. So this just answers everything you can. Then explain it once you break it. You don't have to do it in the table, but the table basically just makes it easy. When I do consulting, this makes it easy for me, and that's why I've answered it in this way. But you don't have to. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you. Are you going to share this with us?
I will. This is one of the course materials that you'll get. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start tonight's session. Rennie, Samantha, I hope you all got that from the homework. And welcome, Ray.
Thank you.
Mr. Stephen, no problem. Mr. Stephen, we shredded your homework while you were away.
Okay.
But you'll get it from the recording. So,
well, can you just give me
yeah, you did well. The only feedback comment I made was that we were looking for who is responsible for all that.
Oh, okay.
So you needed to show who. Yeah, you also mentioned teams. In some of those places where you mentioned teams, it's possible that teams are responsible for it, but in some of your answers, you put the teams responsible where you're supposed to be an individual.
Okay.
The teams can be responsible, but at that some of those places where you put teams, I wanted to see an individual who was responsible.
Okay.
Yeah. So documentation, well, is what we're dealing with today, and that's why we looked at documentation in the homework. We'll look at, have we not covered this already? Didn't we do this? Or am I mixing my classes? Have we not covered documentation? Please remind me.
We've covered these bits. We did this homework in class.
Yeah. Yes. Because I was wondering, well, we've not done this, have we? We have.
We have.
Oh, that's good.
And
It's good to know. Oh yeah, we done all this. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So we've covered documentation. That's why we had documentation as homework. Do you know what slide we stopped? Please, slide number. Did we do this as well? Yes, we did.
Yes.
Right. So this should be where we stopped, because then it will make sense in terms of our count of slides. And that's why we have 4 days of training. And if we stopped here, it means the distribution of the slides will be equal. So I'm guessing this is where we stopped. Good. So we've looked at documentation, and documentation, like we said, just to recap, auditors yourselves will always look at content, format, and the life cycle. Okay? Content must be relevant, must be reliable, must be logical, must be speaking about what the document is about. You don't want the SOA talking about something else. You don't want a password policy talking about email. Yeah, they can reference each other, but it needs to be relevant. Okay, so the life cycle, just a reminder, you have it in your slides. Yeah, that's the life cycle. We said sometimes the life cycle is an abridged one. This is a comprehensive life cycle. And the main thing for an ISMS is that each part is secure. If it's information going into the document, then that document, you need to control the document. That's why the control of documents also came into play. But the criteria for document audits is content, format, and life cycle. Okay. All right. I just wanted to recap that, and then we start today. So audit preparation. As part of the preparation, you will collect policies. This is part of, I think we did this as well. And we did key areas. Yeah, we've covered this part as well. The identification of key areas. Yes.
I think we
This.
did.
We did all this.
Yeah, and we got the, I think, use case for this.
Yes. We did. Very good. We did. This is example audit criteria. I don't want to spend time saying the same things if we've said it before, so I'm going to skip. Okay, so this is a good place to start. The selection and use of audit criteria. And what is audit criteria? Remember, we said the aim of this course is not just so you know how to audit ISO 27001, but you could be auditing something else, either as a combined audit or somewhere else. Okay, remember, a combined audit is when you're auditing two management systems or two frameworks. So even though we're doing ISO 27001 audit, it might be another audit criteria. Audit criteria means what framework are you getting your reference, your requirements from, that you are testing the organization whether they fulfill or whether they should be certified. Okay, so these are some audit criteria, these are some standards, these are some frameworks, these are some regulations. They all make up audit criteria. So the selection and use of audit criteria, some industries such as the PCI DSS, those kinds of regulations are mandatory. If you process payment cards, then you have to comply to it. So for those requirements that are mandatory, those frameworks that are mandatory, you comply to them. And to standards, you conform to standards. Okay? The relevance of local and international data protection rules and privacy and security regulations also should be considered. So if you process personal data, then you have to select what privacy regulation applies to the organization and consider it as a criteria or audit criteria or requirement. Okay, so what we're saying is it is always contextual. You will always look at the context of the organization, you look at its profile, and your engagement letter is always a good pointer, should contain that. The audit charter establishes the audit department, but the engagement letter says what you should do specifically for an audit outing. Okay, good. And then it says, as part of the selection as well, finally, if law or legislative requirements are not prescriptive, then ensure that criteria selected meet the audit objectives to ensure compliance with legislation. So if the legislative requirements are not prescriptive, they are not explicit, still select the criteria to meet your audit objectives. Your audit objectives, remember, could be to certify, to um, to pass local audits or to pass government certification, accreditation. So depending on what the objective is, select those things, those criteria that will make you meet your audit objectives, which will be in your engagement letter. Okay? Your engagement letter covers your scope and covers what frameworks you are complying to. Okay? Now, how do we know that the criteria will be accepted? How do we know it is credible? The acceptability of the criteria is affected by the availability of the criteria to the users of the audit report. Okay, don't forget it starts from an application to audit or an application to get certified, and then that engagement letter comes. The criteria must be recognized, must be authoritative, must be publicly available, and then available to all users within the industry, within a common interest. So ISO 27001 as an example, what does it fulfill? Is it recognized? Yes. Is it authoritative? Yes. Even though by itself it's not mandatory to get certified, you'll see that to win certain contracts, they tell you must get certified. So it fulfills this criteria. Is it publicly available in so many countries? Wow, over 160 countries. Yeah, so that is what it means by acceptability of the criteria. So if I brought you something like Accenture's framework to say you audit Accenture, it'll only be accepted within Accenture and any other party that maybe recognizes Accenture as maybe one of the best. But that standard cannot apply to everyone. Does that make sense? It is called proprietary. It's a proprietary standard, and it may be aligned to an international standard or a publicly available standard, but it does not fulfill the acceptability of the criteria. You couldn't go to uh, a public institution and get trained. You have to get trained on that criteria by Accenture itself. Okay, so that's what we mean by acceptability of the criteria. Any questions, please? No? Okay. So now we get to the part of selecting the audit team members. remember, every audit engagement, every audit is like an exam. Even though the auditors are assessing, if I can use that word, assessing an organization's conformity or status with regards to requirements, the audit team as well is being evaluated. So every audit, auditors as a team are being evaluated. Auditors as individual members are also being evaluated. Okay, and that's why it's important to build a competent and effective audit team to ensure the success of an audit. Even if you do an audit and go, it'll be reviewed as well. So it'll come up for review in the next audit. Remember, when auditors come on the scene of an audit, one of the first things they do is to look at the previous audit. That's where they start before they start to do anything fresh. Oh, let's see your policy. Oh, let's see what you've done the last 12 months. Before they do any of those tests, they will look at the previous audit reports to see if there are any areas of concern that are repeating. Okay, so auditors are evaluated individually and they're evaluated in terms of how they work as a team. So they will know, oh, we need to buy new players. We need to sign another striker. Okay, they'll see whether they work together well as a team. Yeah, so auditors are selected on the basis of their skills, their expertise in the areas of the audit, and their experience as well. You'll see that to maintain your qualification, they ask you for continuous professional credits to see that you maintain your skills and your expertise. And of course, your experience counts. Yep. So to do that, you determine the required skills and competencies based on the scope and the objectives of a particular audit. So if you're going to do something like payment card audit, say it's a combined audit, you want someone that is knowledgeable in the standard or the criteria. You're going to select them based on that. If you're going to do a lot of analysis, statistics, then you want to select someone to go with you. Even if they're not auditors, then you can take them as subject matter experts in their areas of strength. Yeah, that's what it says. Consider including people from diverse backgrounds and expertise as well to ensure comprehensive coverage. These are some of the key competencies, and this is what we encourage you to show on your CV. So if for yourselves, you will highlight expertise in areas such as information security, risk management, and compliance. Okay, that's where you can even put different sections to your CV to say technical knowledge, then you write that information. Or if you put it in your responsibilities, then you need to highlight information security, risk management, and compliance. Okay, make your resume and your CV attractive. Definitely, you have to show audit experience. So if you are either a team leader or lead auditor position or team member position in terms of assisting and supporting the team leader, you then need to show your previous experience in conducting audits or similar assessments. And of course, if you're going for a leadership position, that audit experience must be in leadership, okay? To say you are ready to lead. You can show, because if you've assisted in the past, it can count to say you are ready for your own leadership position. Yeah, so it depends on that as well. Audits of particular industries, you can also show it to say, oh, I've audited finance, I've audited telecoms, depending on the situation. Then, of course, communication skills. Don't forget that it's important for auditors to be able to communicate with key players like the auditees, stakeholders, and even team members. Conflict resolution, especially for more leadership positions. Analytical skills, being able to analyze data, compress it, and report it. Chris, is that you?
No, it's not me.
Okay, no problem. Yes, so your analytical skills as well. Now, sometimes you see all these competencies, and auditors might not, auditors that might not have all of that, but these are very, very crucial skills. Okay, you see some auditors know how to do the audit, but when it comes to interpreting it and putting it in a report, they might fall short of that. Okay, so it's very good to say, right, I'm going to build all these skills because they are very crucial for an auditor. And very, very understated skill is the attention to detail. Sometimes I say something's just in the normal course of the day, and people are like, "Oh, I saw something a tweet today by uh, one Ministry of Education, and they broke down what they'll be charging students of public institutions, and they broke it down into a table, and then I saw BORDING. Meanwhile, it had got there were so many likes, so many comments, but nobody noticed that. It's small, but then I was like, you can what word
One.
is that? BORDING. It's supposed to be boarding, as in BOARDING. School. They put tuition fee and they put boarding fee. So yeah, look at T's, look at I's to make sure they are dotted and they are crossed. Things like that. Attention to detail. And that is a very, very crucial skill. Very, very important. Okay, so what one auditor may miss is very likely that you will catch. Any questions before we go on? Any questions? Any questions? Okay, I'm going to skip this. Yeah, you identify both internal and yes, Rennie.
I said none. None.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so if you've worked with people in the past before, you might want to recall them for another audit if you're leading the audit. And of course, it's not just those within the business, it could be external auditors as well. It could be subject matter experts that are within and without. Okay, so identify and do all that you can to get them well ahead of the audit so that there's enough time for uh, onboarding them if the onboarding takes a while to get through. You have to be careful with that. Match skills to the audit requirements, match skills to the scope, match skills to the objective of the audit as well. And like I said, the reason why you want to ensure you start out the onboarding on time is so that you know those that will be available for the period of the audit. When the engagement letter is given, the audit date is or schedule is usually, or the plan is given you as well. You need to know if somebody is on holiday, if they will be available or not. And that should have occurred during the application when you are doing the feasibility of the audit before you even do the audit plan. Okay, so this consideration for availability should have happened long before now, but we're just talking about team selection. That's why we are stating it here. Then, of course, distribute the tasks and responsibilities throughout the team members. Do a RACI. For this audit engagement, this is who is responsible for blah, blah. So put out all the things you're going to do. Say who is responsible, say who is accountable, who you want to consult, and then, of course, who you will inform. So your communication plan will be there. Your documentation will be there. Interview. Yeah. So just do a RACI. Makes everything easy every time. during certain audits, you'll see that there's bad feelings among auditors sometimes, or between auditors and the auditee or audit client. Be sensitive to all those kind of things. If there's a bad relationship in the audit team, it can affect the audit. Anything that would negatively impact the audit must be sorted out. Okay? Don't forget, as a team, you are being evaluated. As individuals, you're being evaluated as well. It always counts. Just like you're driving, every behavior, positive, negative, yeah, adds up. Yeah. And then support auditors to grow their CPE credits. If you know training companies like Cyberpath Insight, recommend them to auditors to, yeah, maintain their skills, to maintain their competence. Okay, so that is team selection we've done. Now is the audit activity itself. How to initiate the audit, how to prepare for the audit activities, how to do the audit, conduct the audit activities, how to prepare and distribute the report, and then completing the audit. Is there anyone here who will look at this list and say, right, yes, I recognize this, I know how to do it, or no, I've not actually done anything like this? Is there anyone here who would like to tell us their real life experience in terms of audit activities?
Sir, please, can you take the question again? Sorry.
Yeah, I want anyone or everyone to recall real life experiences in terms of audit activities. And if there's anything here you say, oh, I don't think I know, say as an example, initiating the audit. Oh, I don't remember. I just remember we went for an audit. I don't remember how it was initiated. So I just want real life discussions. As an example, have you ever been involved in preparing for the audit activities, or you've just been invited and then you just go for the audit? So if you don't, yeah.
I've been at the client's side, organizing for an audit, ISO 27001, and leading on it. So we were the ones being audited. We were the ones writing the documents, and then the auditors were auditing us. I haven't been on the auditing side. I've been on the client side
on the client side, receiver. You've been on the receiving end, yeah.
On the receiving end on numerous occasions, and sitting down with the auditor for hours on ending, going through evidence and all the information they've gathered and everything, and justifying everything one after the other. And this is even after having walked into an organization like the months before, and the audit is the next month, and you're expected to do magic.
To do magic, yeah. That's very good. It's very good experience as well. So now you want to punish some other people the same.
For me, Roy, I have been on the other side of hosting auditors. So in terms of being audited as well as receiving
You're doing the audit.
report, yes. So, looking at presenting information and making sure that they have all that they need. It wasn't ISMS anyway, but different auditing.
Different audit. So it was a different audit criteria.
Yes, and then receiving audit reports as member of boards as well. So I've kind of played dual role, receiving as class, and then
you need to highlight those experiences.
The reports, yes, which is the yeah. So I'm obviously keen to do the other bit of it, be on the other side. Thank you.
No problem. Well done. Anyone else?
But it's okay to reflect on the client side, because we went through audit activities, we went through them planning the audits, explaining, doing the document review, coming back to us with, coming back to me actually with their findings, and then actually doing the audit, looking at the scope, and based on the scope,
The plan, you look at it together.
Yes, we looked at it together, and even when they found things that were non-conformities, challenging them to it and disagreeing on some occasions. On some occasions, disagreeing on which of the requirements that we had failed on and saying it's the other one. Nonetheless, it's still a non-conformity, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
And things like that. And it was quite a thrilling experience.
Yeah, well done. And so you see, it also still ties to what we said about the acceptability criteria. If you're not doing a recognizable audit, you couldn't put it down to say, oh, I've done so and so audit. Okay. So acceptability criteria also is very important to say, I've been on an ISO audit or I've been on a PCI audit for equivalence to score or to maintain your CPE credits as well. Now, initiating the audit is basically when you've received an application and the team has been selected, the audit plan has been approved and agreed, and then you go on site to do the audit. Okay, so initiating the audit starts with a letter, an engagement letter. Yeah, so that's it here. The initial contact is established with the auditee and the feasibility of the audit is determined. You're saying, oh, yes, we can do the audit. Oh, you mean in November? Oh, November, there's a freeze, or we don't have availability of the team. So the initiating the audit is when either if it's a repeat audit like a surveillance audit, then the certification body, the certification auditors, yourselves as auditors will send a reminder to say, right, long before then, say a few months before the date, if the audit is in February, as an example, you might say, depending on the certification body, I say, oh, 6 months before that, we'll remind them. 3 months close to the time, we'll remind them as well. Then a month to the time, we'll remind them as well. Okay, but it's from the initial contact that you say whether or not that date is feasible, because otherwise there's no reminder, there's nothing. So the initial contact is when the feasibility is done, is determined. Okay, yeah. So you're assessing whether the organization is ready for the audit, and you're confirming the key details to ensure a successful audit process. You're confirming your own availability and the availability of those that you would require on the day. Those that will give you the documents, those you want to interview, and other things like that. Yes, so the lead auditor will formally and sometimes informally just like breaking the ice. Let me get to know these people. Let me tell them about us as well. We want to introduce the audit team and kind of, establish a rapport. Okay. You will also tell them about the audit, tell them about your methods, tell them how you work, where you worked before, just trying to get them to understand that you are going to help. So an audit is a risk assurance function. Though many a times people tend to see auditors as inspectors or they have a negative impression about auditors. You want them to be comfortable, and also you want them to provide evidence or documentation when you ask for it. That, I mean, some people want to hide information because they think they're going to get caught, but auditors are supposed to help an organization get or meet an objective and not anything negative. Okay. So you are confirming that. You're also making sure that if they've said a number of people will be there for you, that that is confirmed. Documentation will be provided. Nothing will be hidden. You can also develop a communication plan. Those that you want to communicate with, say via emails, and if they want to share phone numbers, you want to share yours as well. You also want to confirm if you're leaving your location and it's a distant location. You want to confirm things like logistics, accommodation, transportation as well. Okay, and all that. So this is the sample communication plan where you want to establish clear communication between your team and the auditee or the audit client. So you can have it formally developed like this and approved. The list of the audit team members are listed there. If they have audit team representatives, you know them there, so you're already getting an idea of who they are. If you want to do LinkedIn searches about them, you can do that as well. Basically, just some background information about the audit client, the auditee, and the people. If there's a coordinator of the audit, like someone who's responsible for booking the hotels, someone who's responsible for your movement. If it's, like I said, if it's a distant location, you want all of that established. You want it approved. If there's going to be any change before the audit, then that should be communicated to you. But this is your communication plan. Okay. If there will be a place where documents will be dropped, you are putting the path there. And the access control, the rights, who has access to edit, who has access to other things. Like just this evening, as I put up the slide for this training, I saw guest was editing the slide because I shared the link instead of sharing these slides as a copy. So what I've had to do is to change the location and change the name and save it somewhere else. Okay, otherwise those slides would have taken someone else's. Wait 1 second. It would have taken someone's comments and then the version would be wrong. So I had to change the location and change name. Okay, so this is the communication plan, and then of course it's approved. Rennie keeps dropping and coming back. Rennie, what's wrong with your network? Is it your network? Because you keep dropping and coming back. Rennie, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, so this is just our communication plan. You can create yours. The certification body can give you theirs. There are different communication plans, okay? So, but of course, it's very important. For the feasibility, we've already talked about it, but what we didn't mention was, so as part of the feasibility, it's not just the availability, it's whether it makes sense, the audit will make sense at the time they want it. So as an example, if an audit is not due and they're asking for it, already that's feasibility marks it as wrong, okay? So it's not just resource availability, it's also documentation, completeness, is the audit scope, is the timing as well. You assess the potential risks, what constraints there are, like availability, and also challenges as well. Yeah. And then you develop an internal audit plan. This is a very important skill as well because the plan contains everything you're going to do, must be understood by every team member, every key player as well, not just audit team members, but every key player. Don't forget, it has to be approved or agreed between the two, the auditee and the audit team as well. Okay, this is what an audit plan looks like. Don't confuse an audit plan with an audit test plan. What's the difference between the two, anyone? An audit plan and an audit test plan. And of course, you would need to show that you have developed an audit plan in your CV. That's one skill. That's one responsibility as well. Okay. The difference between an audit plan is saying, oh, we're going to audit. Why are we going to audit? We're going to conduct an audit to assess, we're going to conduct an audit of, say, Tesco's, retail and logistics department to assess compliance with ISO 27001 and identify areas of improvement. As an example, that tells you the scope of the ISMS. Typically, the objective is part of the scope of the ISMS, because we've already said that audit scope is not always the same as ISMS scope. The objective must be related to the ISMS scope, and then the audit scope might be just a portion of it or the same thing. So you see, the audit scope is a specific process, yeah, for the activity. You know, we have the audit program different from the audit activity. So the audit activity is that scope. So if we're not doing the whole ISMS scope, then the scope is just the audit scope we'll put there. The product, sorry, the process, the activity, the department, or if it's the whole organization, the whole ISMS, then we'll say it within that scope. Okay. Then you put the resource, because the main thing in an audit plan is the timeline. Determine the schedule, when you're going to do the planning, the field work, the reporting, the follow-up, and of course, everything else. Okay, the documentation, and then who approves the audit plan? Who is responsible for approving the audit plan?
The executive and board.
The executive and board. Okay. Very good. So the audit plan should be approved by the executive and board. If it's now, it's not all the time that the executive and board should approve the audit plan, and I'll tell you why. If they have approved the schedule, okay, the board doesn't have to approve the activity. They approve the schedule because it's strategic. Remember, we said the program, audit program schedule is strategic, so they can approve that. But when you're going to audit, then a member of the board can approve. It doesn't have to be the board. It can be it can even be an executive, depending on the rank. Okay, like a director level can approve the plan, especially if they are your reporting line. Does that make sense, madam?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So the schedule program can be approved at board level, but the plan not necessarily so. And we talked about the difference.
Quick
Yes.
one,
Yeah.
What I've found though in reality is that usually when the auditors, the auditing company is writing to the clients, they have a contact. So maybe the head of corporate governance or something of that sort. And that's the person who would normally approve anything with them. So far as the board has given a go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, when the company is writing to the auditee.
Okay, yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I just wanted to put that in context in my head.
That's exactly so.
Okay.
That's
okay,
correct,
cool.
yes. So you see, we talked about the difference between the audit plan and the test plan. The audit plan is about when you're going to do the audit, what the audit is about, okay, the resource, the people who will do the audit. The test plan is exactly what you're going to do per clause. So when we're going to look at the clause related to access control, why are we doing that? The effectiveness of access control. What are we going to check? Documentation. We're going to interview. We're going to look at the system, the flow, access control flow. You are saying exactly what checks you're going to do. Okay, so that is the test plan. We're going to test whether the documentation is good, policy, procedure. We're going to interview IT manager, interview administrator. We're going to look at SharePoint technology. Yeah, so that is the test plan. I hope that makes sense. The test plan makes it easy for everyone who's going to do stuff. Don't forget you have a RACI. You can even incorporate the RACI with this. As you can see, it says resources required. Who will do it? And then who is it going to be reported to? The lead auditor is accountable. Who is going to do it will be down there. Okay. So you can incorporate the RACI with the test plan. I hope this makes sense. And then we'll take a break. Fantastic. So please, let's take a break.
So quick one, Roy, before
Yep.
we take a break. Is an audit test plan a subset of an audit plan then?
It is. It is part of your documented, what do they call it now? Your work resources. So what the auditors put their arsenal. Yeah. The audit plan is before you get on there, you're saying when you will go, who you'll go with, the time it will take, and everything. And then it's approved. And then this doesn't go outside of the audit team. The audit team is the lead team leader now that will send it to everyone. Okay, this is how we're going to execute that plan. So this is the execution of the audit plan. Is how we're going to make sure the audit is done. You can also put timings. Yeah.
In reality, can the lead auditor delegate this to the auxiliary auditors, and then they can discuss afterwards? So can the other auditors do a sample test plan and then discuss that with the lead auditor rather than the lead auditor doing it himself?
Oh, definitely. When I say the lead auditor does it, it has to be he has to accept it because he's like the general. Yeah, it's your war plan. War plans, you don't leave it to the foot soldiers, but the foot soldiers might say, "Oh, I know that terrain."
Right.
Then you have to accept it. Oh yeah, this makes sense.
Okay.
Because you're the one there will be other people in the team as well. So they can say, oh yeah, I'll be able to do incident response. That's the auxiliary auditors now will say, oh, I'll be able to, and then the lead auditor has to say, oh yes, I agree. But he should be in command. He or she should be in command.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So you can also put timings, not just dates. You can also say 10 to 11. That's when we'll do this access control. Because some of these tests might occur at on the same day. But you will say, okay, the time you can, in fact, you can even do the same time, but because it might be different actors that will do them. So you can put timings as well.
Roy, can I just ask the audit plan? Do you have a sample of that? Because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, what's the okay? The difference is that this has specific topics.
Yeah, the audit plan. You can organize it any way you want. It's just saying,
okay,
this is the audit we're going to do. This is when we're going to do it. It's ISO. These are the resources. This is the timeline. But this other one, sorry, I think I've gone too far.
Okay, you're going back forward here.
Yeah, so this other one, you are looking at specific clauses. It's a test plan. We're going to interview. We're going to look at, so you see the audit methodology. That's the main thing that's what differentiates an audit test plan. You say, oh, we're going to do document reviews. We're going to interview. We're going to look at access logs. So you plan every clause, what you're going to do to make the audit effective. You're already seeing what you're going to look at.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right. See you guys by 8:15. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. I'm going to pause the recording now and then good. So we've looked at the audit plan and we've looked at the audit test plan. In your leisure, so you see this is repeating incident response. Line 4, you can put something else and try it out yourself. So change it from incident response. We've done access control, incident response, data protection. You can put something else from the standard. Okay, depending on what criteria you choose. Good. So then there's the confirmation and agreement. You're agreeing on dates, times, locations, the audit activities, especially the timing for each one. And of course, both sides confirming that the resources, the people will be available to establish the audit plan. And also for the lead auditor, throughout, you must protect your audit plan. If there's anything that's going to affect the viability of your plan, you must always try to get stay in control. So it's like steering your ship. The audit plan is what you want to ensure happens. You want the plan done. So anything that affects the audit plan, whether it's the timing, something that will make you the time script, what do you call it, creep? So instead of if you've got 1 hour blocked for interviewing and there's something that will make that interview not hold, whether internally or externally, you have to get a control of it. And that's why there's what we call audit risk assessment as well. You do your own audit risk assessment and put controls in place. What are those things that might make the audit not finish on time? So timing could be the risk. Resources not available might be the risk. You may have put somebody to do the audit, one particular audit at a certain time. What if they're not available? What if they get sick and you have to send them home? So you have to do your own risk assessment and put controls in place as well. Okay. Then obtain agreement from the auditee about the audit plan and then address any concerns or questions that might come up regarding your audit plan. Document all communication, make sure it's organized. Don't forget, you're also going to audit their documentation. So by yourself, you have to have your own document control as well. Your agreements, if somebody asks, oh, where's the agreement? It shouldn't take you too much time because you're already organized. Okay, so plan all of these things ahead of time. Records as well. And you know, your own audit will be audited by other auditors the next time. If you're not the same person that will audit the cycle, say the surveillance the next time, then of course, you have to bear that in mind as well. Maintain records of the initial contact, of the feasibility assessment, of your audit plan, of any communication, any correspondence whatsoever. Okay, because those ones as well may even serve as evidence. Good, good. And then as part of the audit plan, make sure the audit plan is being followed. If anything is going to move away from the plan, communicate it ahead of time. To say, oh, please, can we move these activities so and so? Make sure it's agreeable. Don't just take them by surprise. Say, okay, no, we said we'll do so and so, but we want to do blah, blah, blah now. Okay, that's not very good. As part of your evaluation, the auditees will also score you to say, oh, communication was good, this was that. Yeah, so there'll be feedback and evaluation of the audit as well. In terms of the opening meeting, it should be carried out on the first day as part of the audit plan. You put it there, opening meeting, who it will be with, invite key stakeholders, not everybody that you want to see. Management of the auditee, maybe sometimes even representative of the audit client, if it matters. Introduce the audit team, say what each person will be doing, tell them about the method, your process, your methodology that you'll be doing. And then, of course, confirm the audit objective. This is what you're doing the audit for. Okay. Let them also know if it's an external audit, what will constitute a minor non-conformity, what will be a major non-conformity, and all of those things. Make sure they understand the audit completely. And let them ask any questions here. So address any questions that they might have before you start. Okay. And in terms of, so this is part of the agenda of the opening meeting. Put out all the things you want to discuss, stay on time, introduce yourself, introduce your method, and things like that. The roles and responsibilities, your methodology, then you agree on the next steps. Okay, this is just a way of staying organized, essentially. Yeah. So interviewing is a very key skill because most of what you do in audit, whether it's even remote, as we do them over Zoom and Teams and everything nowadays, is a lot of interviewing, a lot of documents collection and evidence gathering. Okay, so make sure the interview is conducted by someone who's experienced in interviewing, who can get things out, even when people don't want to really talk too much. This person is so good that they can get answers. Yeah, so it's a key skill. It's like an interrogation skill, a skill of interrogators, but you don't want to come across as interrogating them. Okay, so make sure you ask open-ended questions. Open-ended, you don't ask things like, have you got, do you have, where they can just say yes or no. Okay, if you use the 5 W's, you're almost certain to be asking open-ended questions. What is the process? Who is responsible? Where is the document? When was this conducted? They will give you answers more than just a yes or a no. Okay. And if you're taking notes, make sure you let them know why you are taking notes. Don't let them feel suspicious. Okay. Tell them you'll be taking notes and tell them why you're taking notes. Like we said, the test plan, data collection is basically executing your test plan. Observation. Oh, we're going to observe. Documentation. Oh, we're going to ask for access control policy. We're going to ask for email policy. Remember, this test plan is where you specify what you'll do. We are going to analyze. We're going to technically gather outputs. Okay, for every clause, for everything you want to see, you gather evidence. And here are some of the others. Physical examination. So you will plan those things you want to physically observe. You will say what documents and records you want to collect for each of those aspects you want to test. Okay, where you want to do sampling, you will plan it. Where you want to gather expert opinion, oh, we want to confirm with the legal counsel. So expert opinion on certain areas, if it matters, depending on the objective of the audit, you would have all planned it out. Okay, and what we mean by quality and reliability is that all of these kinds of evidences you are gathering, they all have a scale of reliability. Okay, so physical examination, as an example, has high reliability. Why? Because you're there, you're seeing it, you can touch, they're tangible. If they say we've got CCTV, you can see the CCTV. And if you want to test its reliability and effectiveness, that is another step. But physical is very, very reliable. Okay, because things are tangible. Then documentation and records is high, but not as high as physical examination or observation. Observation is seeing the process running while you're there, you're seeing it happen. That is observation. Okay. Inquiry and confirmation is highly reliable in any framework. Say the Certified Information Security Auditor course as an example. Confirmation, when it's a third party, very, very reliable because of independence. Okay, so inquiry and confirmation is scored as high. Oral representation, I'm skipping some others. Expert opinion is the same as inquiry and confirmation. Oral representation is low because somebody is just saying something and they can change and say, oh, that's not what I said, or they can even say, that's not what I meant. You may have misheard. Okay, so oral representation has a low score in terms of reliability. And the same thing with circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence means it's not direct, it's circumstantial. It's not, you're getting something and it can, you're not going directly to where the activity may have occurred. Okay, instead, you are going indirectly. So that is circumstantial. In terms of tying this to the risk assessment I mentioned before, when you know an evidence type is low in terms of its reliability, you do what we call corroboration. That means you use another type of evidence to support one type of evidence. So if you are collecting documentation or interviewing oral representation, you say, "Can I see it?" You are supporting it with documentation, as an example. Okay, so that is another aspect of auditing and another skill. Any questions so far? Okay, so collecting evidence is one thing. Confirming or verifying it to be true is another thing. So ISO verifies the controls in place to meet the standard. Where there's a requirement and you are checking to see if there's a fulfillment of that requirement, you want to confirm, you want to verify that it is effective, or sometimes, depending on the objective of the audit, that it is also efficient. Okay, not just effective, but efficient. As an example, it is usual to test for effectiveness and efficiency in an internal audit, or in an external audit. The typical test is just for effectiveness. You can't be saying, oh, you should have done it in 2 days. Why did it take you 1 week? It's not usual in an external audit. But in an internal audit, because you're working for the organization, efficiency, saving costs for the business, wanting to ensure the business gets value from its own asset, and you are, yeah, so the mandate is typically for efficiency and effectiveness. Do we understand that, everyone? Effectiveness and efficiency.
Roy, I think you might need to re-explain that bit.
Okay. Verification of controls is testing whether the controls do meet the objective. So if a control is supposed to prevent, is it preventing? That is effectiveness. It's doing the job. Efficiency, it's whether it is doing the job well. Okay. So if something does, or someone does a task, they are effective. But if they do it better than someone else, if someone else takes 2 days to do something and another takes 2 hours to do it, they are both effective. But that person that did it in 2 hours rather than 2 days is also efficient. Okay? So effectiveness is just doing it, no matter how long it takes. Efficiency is doing it to derive some more benefit from it. Are we good on that? I need to know. Chris, are you good?
Yeah, yes, I am. I was just wondering, is there no
Mm.
element of actually, apart from the doing it, but the fact that it's done properly, not the how much, but how well?
Yeah, that's what I said. I
Which
said how
element
well.
does it come into? Okay, all
I
right,
did say how well.
okay.
Yep. Yeah, so how well it's done. Yeah. Yeah. So to verify the implementation and effectiveness of ISMS control, sometimes you rely on what has been done before, your attendance. Some other times you want to see that it's done while you're there. So for re-performance checks, okay, as part of the collection of evidence, there's the one that's called re-performance. You want to see it done while you're there. Okay. So this verification can be done through risk assessments, internal audits, sometimes penetration testing as well, but not while you're there. For technical controls, that's the verification of controls. Is it working? Is it working well? Okay, you know whether controls exist and whether they are effective as well. And if it's an internal audit, you want to know whether they are efficient as well. Sorry, the last bullet point there is important. It says the verification criteria includes proving the existence of policies, procedures, and processes existence, demonstrating the deployment of controls, measuring the performance and effectiveness, and then, of course, verifying compliance with laws, regulations, and contractual requirements. So that is verification. First, it exists, then whether it works, then you can see whether it works well. So it's all uh, in stages. Can someone remind us what risk-based audit approach is? What do we mean by risk-based audit approach? What do we mean when we say we are following a risk-based audit approach?
And that's where you focus on the high risk areas of the organization. You prioritize those.
Fantastic. That exercise we did about identifying key areas. So every audit has got constraint, whether it is clear and apparent or whether it's not. You are always constrained because it is not perpetual. You don't do audits forever. You are typically constrained. So sometimes it's not possible to check everything 100%. And that's why a risk-based audit approach will be followed. Let us prioritize. Where are those areas where they might suffer the highest fines and penalties? Oh, that is where. So where would they get a benefit from? If we don't finish all the audit, let us have, at least cover those areas that are high priority, high risk areas. Okay. It is prioritization. Risk-based audit approach is all about prioritizing where risk is highest. Prioritize it, and it is also it also points to what is material or critical. In audit, the correct term is materiality. Okay, audit materiality. How much, if we don't audit this place well, how would it affect the audit? It is material. So let us focus on that. Let us put those that know how to do it well. Let us put those that are experienced to do it, because it's a material area. It is a key area. Okay. It enables the development of an audit plan. That's why we'll focus 2 hours on this, 1 whole day on this area. Put our best team to audit that area because it is material. And this materiality takes us to the part of audit risk. Remember, I told you, as auditors, you will do a risk assessment yourself to see that the timing, the plan will be the audit plan will be executed. That's what I was looking for. Will be executed. The coverage, you cover the audit scope. Okay, so auditors also do a risk assessment because there are audit risks, and there are 3 types or 3 components of this audit risk. We have inherent risk, we have control risk, and we have detection risk. This is something that auditors need to understand very, very well. If you are going for an audit interview, this is one area that you might be asked. Okay, so audit risk is basically the risk that the audit might not produce an output that is acceptable or that is a reflection of the position of the auditee. Okay, so in that way, the auditors might reach an incorrect conclusion to say, oh yeah, major non-conformity. Oh yeah, there's a finding here. Oh, this finding is not an observation, it's a minor. Okay, so the auditors will make a misstatement. That is audit risk. It will lead them to make a misstatement. Why? The inherent risk, the risk within the organization is there. It's part of who they are. Might cause the auditors to not do the audit properly, to not plan the audit properly. Control risk, the control might not stop something, and the auditors. So control risk is where the control does not perform as it's supposed to, and then detection risk is down to the auditor or auditors, where the auditor will not detect what they should have detected. Okay, so these are all risks, and as part of the risk assessment, you will put controls or measures in place to ensure this is handled. Now, you see, inherent risk refers to the risks that are in the nature of the organization's business and its operations, its profile, its context, who they are, where they are, their size, their technology. It's inherent. There are risks with oil and gas in the UK, the laws and regulation. That's inherent risk. Okay. It includes the complexity of the organization's operations. They are widely spread. There's an inherent risk in widely spread companies. The industry, oil and gas, have their own risk because they have their own laws and regulation. Okay, so it's inherent. Inherent risk is the risk that comes with the organization when they apply and they tell you who they are, where they are, how many staff they have, what kind of operation they have, what industry they are in. Oh, there's a risk. So how do we do that? Let us select the best team for such an organization. That is one typical measure. Okay. So that is one typical measure. So the competence of the management of the audit team is one way to do that, to handle it. And then there's control risk. Control risk is basically the potential risk that an auditor might encounter while assessing an organization's control framework. It is in the framework. Okay. It can be managed by following a structured approach, understanding the environment. So you would then put the right team to the right audit. Okay. So one way of mitigating against control risk is the deployment, the assignment of auditors. One way of handling inherent risk is the selection of the audit team and planning the audits to ensure you cover everything you should cover because they are in such and such industry. So you will select the right team. Okay, so selection for inherent risk. For control risks, the assignment of those people you've selected is one way of mitigating control risk. Because now you understand the organization. Oh, this person should do so and so. That person should. Yeah, so the assignment is one way of mitigating control risk. And then detection risk is auditors failing to see something they should have seen. And so one way of mitigating that an auditor may miss what they should have seen is to do a peer review. Okay, is to review everybody's work is reviewed by another because they could have missed what they should have seen. So are we okay with the three explanations, the three things I've told you? Inherent risk, control risk, and detection risk, and the typical measures for these three things.
What's an example of a control risk?
A control risk is you're going to audit Active Directory. So in this team, who can audit Active Directory well? Is basically from the standard. What's your strength? So you do a SWOT for all your team. Whose strength area is that clause? Chinyere, because she has worked at a high level, strategy will be her strength. So you give her +4. She has done SWOT and PESTLE before for an organization. Control risk, so that you don't miss what you're supposed to check there. So you assign the right people to the right control. You see, like we did at RACI, we said access control, we said what else was on our list? That I said you would do the fourth one. That's where control risk is being mitigated. You're assigning people to the right controls because the controls may not be doing what they're supposed to do there. Okay?
Yeah.
Aha. Another way of looking at it is that no environment is perfect. So there's certainly going to be something. You're not going to audit to find a perfect place. So control risk is that controls may not be doing what they're supposed to. So you want to be able to find it. You don't want to miss it. Detection risk is down to the players, the people, the auditors. Maybe they will not find it. So to mitigate against that, you do a peer review. So for each of these risks, there is a measure you put in place. Okay, so those are three key risks that every experienced auditor should understand. Any more questions before we move on? Good.
So how can you reflect your understanding of inherent risks, control risks, and detection risks in a conversation or an interview conversation or even on your CV?
Very good. Because inherent risk is what comes with the territory. You have the skill, you've developed the skill to understand organizations. inherent risk comes with, oh, that's because I've worked in oil and gas, so I know how the oil and gas industry works. Remember, when you are qualified as auditors, you are qualified by industry, because you would have said, as whether as a claim or as fact, to say, I look at my experience, I've worked in oil and gas, I've worked in finance, so you understand the terrain. It's like saying, we're going to go up to the mountain, we're going to go to climbing up to Kilimanjaro. Who would you like to be your guide? Chris, if you want to climb up a mountain, who would you like to put in front?
It's a professional mountain climber.
That has climbed that particular mountain, because all mountains
Yeah.
are not the same.
Yeah.
Aha.
Yeah.
So that's what inherent risk is.
Right.
That's why you select the team leader you select is someone who knows oil and gas. Unless you've gone through and there's nobody there, you select somebody who knows auditing. But you want to first select an auditor who knows oil and gas, because the inherent risk of oil and gas, oh, they're multi-spread. This is how they are. This is what they do. This is the kind of regulation. Have you audited this ISO 6823 before? Oh, no, you're just used to 27,000. Oh, we want somebody that knows both 27,001. So that's the inherent risk. It comes with the territory. They are multi-sites. It's inherent. So when you describe the organization, the inherent risk is what stands out regarding that understanding. So how do you prove it to people? Oh, I do a background study. I go to swotandpestle.com, or I've done my own SWOT and PESTLE before. I see what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. Multi-site, I've worked in multi-sites before. And this is how I plan to audit multi-site organizations. I do teams, or I drive, especially if it's not more than 50 miles away from each site. Yeah, so that's how you bring out what you've done regarding inherent risk. And basically, you might not say inherent risk in your conversations, but you know how to develop an understanding of organizations that you are going to audit, auditees and audit clients. Yeah, Chris?
Yes.
You always paint a picture of who you're going to audit before
Yeah.
you set out. It helps you create an audit plan, and it's reflective in your audit plan. And your audit plan is then approved, and that's how you've always surmounted problems regarding inherent risks or certain organizations in certain industries.
Okay.
Very good. And then, of course, we've talked control risk and detection risks is peer review. Every auditor's work is reviewed by another auditor. Good practice, best practice, and it handles detection risks as well. Yeah, fraud risk also can occur either in the auditee, the audit client, or even the audit team. Fraud can come anywhere. So what do we do? Remember your scale. Was it your ethical consideration? First, check the law of your location. What's inherent? Where are we? We're in Nigeria. Oh, what does the law say? Oh, you're in the UK. Sorry, pardon me, I'm laughing. Okay, so you look at the profile. What does the law say about this kind of things I've discovered? Then you look at so the law, regulation, the policy, the organization, and then you remember your professional associations. Okay, so that's how you look. Yeah, that's why it says you must plan to identify and assess fraud risk, including evaluating the inherent risk, the control environment. Okay, what could make the fraud risk appear? Weak internal controls, lack of ethical culture, collusion, and basically just the general external culture of the auditee or audit client. Audit materiality basically is what is key, what is critical to an audit. It helps you prioritize. We've said it many times. Okay, so materiality is criticality is what is key. If you see, I'm taking you back. Materiality is always what is key, what is material, what is critical. there. Every time you see materiality, is basically what is the key area, where which one matters most, which one is critical, material. Okay, yeah. So audit is always evaluated to say, right, which one is material? Oh no, we'll do that last. It's not critical. Okay, so that's materiality. Materiality is a matter of professional judgment, and it's influenced by size and nature of misstatement. How well with us not doing proper audit here, how would it affect our evaluation? The certification body, we might be giving a certificate to those who are not supposed to. It's critical that we get it, so that's materiality. It says the materiality threshold for ISO 27001 audit is set quite low. Okay, the materiality threshold in an ISO 27001 audit refers to the level of significance that an auditor assigns to a particular finding. So, in other words, it is the threshold that determines whether a finding is deemed important enough to report or not. Okay. Any questions? So materiality is very sensitive in an ISO audit, and you need to explain that in your opening meeting. Okay. To determine materiality, look at the context and the objective of the audit engagement. If the certification body, the auditor, the auditee, audit client all agree, the materiality or the context and the objective of the audit would help you determine the materiality. We cannot set our risk appetite for the audit too high. We cannot set it too low. It all depends on the context and the objective of the audit engagement. And the audit engagement is always contained in an engagement letter. So you would know whether we can waive certain things off or no, we have to look at it critically before we make a decision. Okay. So the context and objective matters. The size and complexity of the audited entity as well. Potential impact on others, stakeholders, interested parties. Okay, how would it impact? If we miss this, if we don't say it correctly, what will be the perception? We might be giving a certificate to those who don't deserve it. Okay, so that matters. Then you look at the risk appetite. Okay, legal and regulatory requirements always affect risk appetite. Remember the illustration we gave about driving. Okay, they cannot set their risk appetite anyhow. So if you are auditing and auditing is looking at the risk to stakeholders, you want to see, right, should I report this? Should I fail this? Or should I pass this? What will be the effect on people? If it's going to be material, say as an example, data protection, you're doing an audit of data protection section, and you see failings in the protection of personal information. You can't just say, you can't look at it in the same way you would look at, say, missing documentation. Protection of personal information is critical. It will affect customers. And also, the risk appetite is not decided by the organization by itself. It is tied to the supervisory authority. The ICO, as an example, said zero tolerance for exposing sensitive personal information. So you see, materiality or risk appetite is not just down to the organization. And then the auditors must audit based on all these considerations. Okay, so risk appetite and all the financial significance, what fine? If, say, in terms of the financial significance now, we've left legal and regulatory consideration for risk appetite. As a risk assurance function, if we don't audit an area very well, an organization their revenue might suffer. They might make a loss. They might lose money. So financial significance also is a pointer to how material it is. Oh, they spent so much, they invested so much in this aspect or in this thing. That also counts as something that adds up to what is material. So penalties they might pay, risk to other people, financial losses they might suffer. These are all the things that make us know what is material and what is not material. Okay, so that's what we've just put on here. And then if it's a repeat offense, previous audit findings, it might not be material in the previous audit, but when it's repeated offense, it becomes material. Just like when you're driving, you do one offense, they might say go and do a driving course. But when it's repeated, they might say 3 points on your license. You do it again, they'll add another one. Okay, so that's the same thing with what is determined as material. Good, good. We are close to where we will stop for today. So just like we looked at materiality, there's also what is material weakness. It is basically an inverse relationship between materiality and the level of risk that is acceptable to the auditor. Okay, material weakness, and it's a pointer to materiality and the level of risk that you will accept. Okay, so the higher the materiality level, the criticality level, the lower the acceptability. How we did the acceptability criteria before. Let me take you back. So what should we accept? Oh, the higher the materiality, the lower we will accept. Yeah, it's just inverse. So please take a note of that. You can get that in the in the exam. Oh, oh no. Materiality, acceptability criteria. Can't find it. Oh yeah, yeah. I didn't have to go far. Yeah. Okay. So any questions?
Sorry, what's the last statement? Did you say the higher the materiality, the lower
the acceptability, yeah.
the acceptability?
So,
Okay.
the higher the criticality, the lower your tolerability for misstatements or risks. So your tolerance will be lower, higher the criticality. That's just, I hope it makes sense to you. This car is shining and brand new. You won't tolerate even a scratch on it. You will be more careful the more valuable something is, isn't it?
Okay.
That's the explanation. Yeah. So to gain additional assurance in instances of high audit risk or lower materiality, you compensate either by extending the scope or the nature of the test or by increasing detailed testing. So if something is really critical, you will do more substantive testing. You won't just do peripheral checks. The checks will be more in-depth. Does that make sense? Because the organization in this area, whether it is explicitly told to you or you've determined it by looking at the profile of the organization, you say, oh, this is a revenue generating department. We should not miss. Yeah, we should check. Or this is an area where the government, interested party, regulator has cast its eye. You will do more checks. Okay, you won't just do checks on the surface documents. That's where you want to interview. That's where you want to put your best hands. That is the explanation here. Okay, and that's what takes us to our next slide: materiality and risk appetite. Okay, materiality, criticality is dependent on specific circumstances of the organization and its risk appetite. Okay, and the risk appetite is not determined just by guessing or finger in the air. It is down to interested parties, law, regulation, financial revenue generation, yeah, risk areas, perception by people external to the organization. Oh, if we make a mistake and give someone who shouldn't have a driver's license, we didn't do a proper test, yeah, you give certification to someone to an organization that shouldn't have certification, you do, oh, this area, because this is the area where risks are high. This is where there's a lot of money. This is where the government is very, very concerned. Personal information. That's why they even created DPA 2018. So anything that has to do with personal information, we'll do a comprehensive audit. Okay? It won't be loose. So this is how we check materiality at the different audit stages. Criticality. We've already mentioned it before. So inherent risk, because it's within the territory, the nature of the organization, it affects the duration of the audit and the selection of the audit team. I already explained it to you. In terms of size and skills, you select them because you say, oh, it's oil and gas. They've contacted us and they've told us who they are. They are in the media industry. Okay, the risks that are inherent in the media will make us select a particular audit team and a certain number that will make up the team and a combination of what skills we're looking for. We've already discussed that. And in terms of materiality and the second stage, that's stage one audit, which is a documentation audit, materiality is assessed based on control risk. So we've left inherent risk. We're now looking at control risk because we've selected auditors. So it will help us assign audit responsibilities based on our selection. Our selection was because of the inherent risk, initial contact. The assignment of roles will be based on control risk, or because they have this kind of system, because they have that kind of system, because we're checking so and so, we will assign different. It affects, or it basically determines who we assign to where, because now we're looking at what controls there are. And then stage two audit, that is where we assess the materiality of detection risk, because now we've assigned people, we will make sure there's a peer review. Okay, it affects auditors. It will affect how deep our audit is. So you see, it says it affects the sampling method that will be used. It affects the audit procedure that will be used, rather. Okay, so it affects the audit procedure. Even the sampling method is correct, but it doesn't express what I want it to. So I'm changing it. Audit procedure or audit test plan. Audit test plan or procedure, so that we don't miss it. Now, you remember, what did we say the reliability of oral representation is? Interviewing. What's the scale when it comes to oral representation? Is it high, medium, or low? Yes, Rennie? I didn't hear that. Rennie, you were saying something. I'm asking a question.
Sorry, can you Not
Yeah,
sure.
I said, what is the reliability of interview or oral representation? Is it low, medium, or high? When you think of how you collect evidence, does interviewing oral representation, does it have a high reliability? How reliable is the evidence,
I think
oral evidence?
it's quite low.
It is quite low. Yes. So because we are looking at detection risks, we must select based on criticality. We will select the right test plan. Oh, we don't want to miss access control. So we will not just take their word for it when it comes to access control. It is critical. It is material. So we will select the highest reliable type of testing. That is what we are doing in stage 2. It is low, Rennie. Oral, yeah, it is low. And that's how we check materiality at the different stages. When we're checking the risk that comes with the territory, inherent risk, it helps us say, oh, it'll take us 2 weeks because we're going to audit an oil and gas company, Shell. They are based in the UK, but they've got offices here, there, and there. So it helps us say how long the audit will be. It also helps us say, oh, I want Chinyere, I want Rennie, I want Didi to audit with me because they have experience in the oil and gas. So inherent risk helps us determine the audit team size and what skills you're looking for. Control risk helps you determine who you will put where and where, because the scope says this is what we're going to audit. These are the controls we're going to audit. So it helps you say, okay, you audit this part, you audit that and that. Yeah. So on-site audit plan, when you get on-site, an assignment of who will do what. Stage 2 audits, you are assessing the materiality of detection risk. So it's inherent, control, and detection. That's what we always show. Okay, that's what it should always be. It's always 1 second. Where did I put it? At the start of this section, we said inherent, control. Yeah, so there. So it's always inherent, control, and detection. Initial contact, stage 1 audit, and stage 2 audit. Can somebody remind me what stage 1 audit is really about? What is stage 1 audit? And how is it different from stage 2 audit? I know we've said so much tonight, so we'll soon stop so that we don't get information overload. What's the difference between stage 1 audit and stage 2 audit? Should I give it as homework? The difference between stage 1 and stage 2 audit.
It's one where you collect the evidence, and the other where you verify it. Actually, I'm not sure. Sorry.
Okay, well done. Thanks, well done. That's a good effort anyway. Stage 1 audit. Now you see, when an organization wants to get certified, there's a stage 1 audit where you are looking to see whether they are ready to be audited. Stage 2 is where you make a decision. Oh yeah, that's where you do the in-depth check. Stage 1 is where you check whether it even exists. Have they done their audit? Oh yeah, there's an audit report. You don't have to look at the details of the audit to see whether it's well done. Have they done management review? Oh yes, they've done a management review. Have they done training? You're just looking at the existence of those things on the surface. So that because if they haven't even done it, there's no need for us to come for stage 2. The stage 2 is where you're looking at the details of what is in their documentation, of their practices. Stage 1 is just a document review, looking at the existence of things. If it doesn't exist, there's no need to even do stage 2. Okay? So substantive testing is done in stage 2. Compliance testing and compliance check is done in stage 1. Stage 1 is, does it exist? Stage 2, has it been done properly? Okay? So stage 2 is where decisions are made whether to recommend for certification or whether not to recommend. Okay? Very good. So this is the encapsulation of everything we said. Detection risk, control risk, and inherent risk. Inherent risk helps you determine your audit plan, your checking audit plan. Okay? Control risk, you satisfy it by sufficient and appropriate evidence regarding the test of the control and the procedures to understand the control. Detection risk, you're saying, oh, this is the test procedures we'll use, and that is where you do the test of details. Okay? All right, we finish here tonight. We'll continue from here tomorrow. Are there any questions, whether from what we've said today or around auditing in general, or around the ISO standard itself? I'm taking questions. I hope those that joined late, I hope you you look at the homework. We discussed it earlier today. If you missed it, then of course you'll get the recording to go over it. And if there are no questions, then that's it for tonight.
Roy, I was gonna
Yeah.
ask, when would, after we finish, I think tomorrow, how long would
Yeah.
we have until the exam for this course?
Actually, there's an exam on the 31st of the month. If you want to do it, you're welcome to. But you can, I recommend 4 weeks, within 4 weeks. So as soon as we're finishing tomorrow, you can do your exam on the 31st. There's one scheduled to run on the 31st. You can join that exam. I would encourage you to. There's no need to wait too long. But other than that, you can say, okay, within a month, I just want to review, I want to take my time, and then you can do it in a month's time. Or you also still have the opportunity to do it within 12 months. But I always encourage people to do it as soon as they finish. Don't let it linger. Yeah?
Okay.
So there's one happening on the 31st, and you are welcome to join that one.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem.
Sorry, can I just ask the difference between stage 2 audits and, rather stage 1 and
Stage 2.
No, stage 1 and the surveillance audit, which is the one that you do every year. I'm just trying
Stage
to
1
relate
and stage
whether.
Yeah, that's fine. Stage 1 and stage 2 only happens the first time an organization is going to get certified.
Okay. Okay.
Surveillance audit happens 1 year after they've been certified.
Okay.
So that's every 12 months to get audited.
Okay.
So stage 1, stage 2 only happens in the first time they're getting certified.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Have a good night, and you'll get the recording. I can't promise that you get it tonight, and someone might have to remind me to send it tomorrow. Oh no, you might get. We're meeting tomorrow. I thought today was Sunday, so yeah, you'll get the recording. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Take care. Bye.